Hey everyone, how's it going?
What, no big creepy opening for the Halloween season?
I'm diving into something that Zeb Wells helped create in his Spider-Man run. You really think I'm gonna be in the mood? Though luckily he didn't write this comic, so it's probably not gonna be a total nightmare. Anyway, let's get into it. Today we're going to cover Hallows Eve. Published earlier this year, Hallows Eve is a spin-off series to the Spider-Man X-Men event Dark Web. Expect a review on that later. The concept was created by Zeb Wells. Yes, concept, not character, as that's really all Wells did. Instead of coming up with a character with an interesting personality and motives, he instead focused more on making her look sexy and cool. But who is Hallows Eve? Well, to answer that, we need to dive a bit into the history of her alter ego, Janine Godby. Before though, I must give a trigger warning to my more sensitive viewers, as I will be discussing both sexual and psychological abuse. To avoid hearing such things, I will place a time code here to skip. Co-created by J.M. DeMatteis and John Romita, Janine first appeared in the comic miniseries Spider-Man the Lost Year in 1995, where she's met by a wandering Ben Reilly. I'll get more into Ben in the Dark Web review, but in a bridge version, he's a clone of Peter Parker, the first Scarlet Spider, and so are Ryder's punching bags. She's working as a waitress at a local diner where her and Ben grow close and eventually fall in love. As the two get closer, Janine reveals the truth to Ben that her original name was Elizabeth Tyne, who grew up in an abusive household where her father would beat her and her mother, with things getting more horrific once she reached puberty. As though she never says it outright, it's made clear that he'd force himself on her. Feeling trapped and limited on options, she'd kill her father in self-defense. She'd run away from home, changing her name, pray no one would recognize her or come looking for her, in fear of getting arrested. That would change, however, after meeting Ben, as they would spend some time together on the road, but after several big storylines and faking her death, Janine would be forced to turn herself in for her father's murder. We wouldn't see Janine again until Zeb Wells' Spider-Man Beyond storyline, where Ben, with the help of the Beyond Corporation, was able to put her under house arrest instead of full-on incarceration. But then things got weird. Not weird cool, more weird stupid. Ben would become the supervillain named Chasm, who at first was trying to get revenge on Beyond since they were screwing with his memories, but then for some unexplained reason, started blaming Peter, and teaming up with X-Men, sometimes villain, sometimes ally, Queen of Limbo, no really, Madeline Pryor, aka the Goblin Queen, to get revenge. Again, I'll talk about their dumbass plan another time, but short version, it makes no sense, and at first Janine tries to be the voice of reason to help Ben, but even she ends up catching the idiocracy, as after an encounter with a guy who may or may not be working for Beyond, bring up her past, it immediately has her pull a 180 and decide to help Ben and Madeline. To assist with the plan, Madeline grants her magic, giving birth to Hallows Eve, who gains a bag filled with magic Halloween masks that either grants her special powers or turn her into a certain monster like the Frankenstein monster. Now you're probably wondering why she's Halloween themed instead of having powers that more directly link to Limbo or even Chasm. Well, the answer is simple. Shut up. Yeah, I couldn't really find an actual reason for this change in Janine's character. Many, including myself, think that someone in editorial looked at DC's characters like Punchline and demanded that they have their own character like that. But again, Wells didn't want to put in the work, and well, it led to a lackluster introduction in a really bad story, and plastering her everywhere. I mean, this wasn't the Gwen Stacy variant levels of insane, but it was up there. Anyway, Dark Web ended with Chasm being imprisoned in Limbo and Janine once again on the run, but intends to save Ben. Did this series help do what Dark Web failed to do and have us care about Janine's alter ego? Well, let's look at Hallows Eve and find out. Warning, spoilers. Our story begins with Janine getting a harsh reminder that she's a wanted woman, as her face is plastered throughout New York, so she uses one of her masks to keep a low profile. How so? By making her look like Marilyn Monroe. And like that, I started to think that Janine only stayed under the radar because of dumb luck. As much as she wants to save Ben, she can't do it with the whole city looking for her. So for now, she's planning to just rob a bank and skip town using her ghost mask to go through the walls. Though she does look through the deposit boxes, filled with priceless jewelry, and even vintage comic books like Amazing Fantasy 15. Not sure how that works, but maybe Peter Parker pulled a Spider-Verse. But she cut out the middleman and just took the cash. Unfortunately, the ghost mask makes her totally intangible, so she has to take it off to grab the cash. That also means she's now caught on camera and security is heading her way. So back in Dark Web, Madeline told her that the bag is limitless. It can give her any mask she needs, so of course she goes for a mask that will keep her hidden. That of course would be the Wolfman.
Yep, dumb luck. That's my headcanon now.
Now, her plan was to simply scare the security guard, but unfortunately, all it did was make him pull out his gun in fear and fire at her. Hallows Eve scratches and bites him and is tempted to kill him, but decides to spare him and just run with the money she was able to get. This, of course, gets the attention of both the police, in particular, a Detective Shari Seben, and the Beyond Corporation, especially Maxine Danger, the company's director and the main villain of the Beyond storyline, where they were actually trying to capitalize on superheroes. Kind of like Vought from The Boys, but more like the show version, since they were at least trying to act competent. Anyway, she sees the werewolf and thinks it could be useful for their latest plan, with their first step getting any samples at the crime scene and talking to the security guard, the latter being easier said than done. As it turns out, the mask has all the powers of the werewolf, because she bit him, turned the security guard, who later we learn is named Simon, into a werewolf, transforming in front of the news team for all of New York to see, including Janine. Feeling guilty for what she's done, she hopes to track Simon down and help find a cure. To help with the search, she turns to a former Beyond employee and ally, Marcus Montplacer. I guarantee you I butchered that name. But as they look for Simon, Beyond is not that far behind. Can they find Simon before they do? What do they plan to do with him? Will Simon be a friend or ally? And will this story get us interested in Hallows Eve as a concept? Well, you could read to find out, but honestly, you ain't missing much. This comic isn't bad, but it honestly is pretty forgettable. The comic's written by Erica Schultz, who some might know for the comic Bylines of Blood
And Legacy of Mandrake, the Magician.
and I didn't read the latter, but the former was pretty solid and well received. This book, however, she was clearly not on her A game with this one. It feels like she was told by Marvel to write this story to help boost the popularity of this character. This just feels like all business and no pleasure, as despite all the monsters and Eve's whole gimmick, it never feels like a Halloween story. And similar to Blacksad Armorillo, we get a lot of moments that just feel too convenient, but even more forced. Like, we learn Hallows Eve's hideout is an abandoned building that was owned by some rich guy who just kind of scrapped his project, but still left the water and power on, which really makes no sense. The second time reading, I realized that it's even dumber. Janine doesn't even need to be there. She has a mask that can turn her into anybody or anything. Getting a place to stay should not be a struggle. Hell, getting the money isn't a struggle. The whole bank robbery could have been avoided. All she had to do is, like, I don't know, put on a vampire mask and just use hypnosis. And that's another thing. The power system these masks have are very out of whack. Like, on more than one occasion, Hallows Eve struggles to take down an enemy created from the power of the masks, like Simon. You'd think the fact that she created him, or have an unlimited supply of masks in her disposal, would make defeating these foes involve zero effort. But nope. Like, werewolves are my favorite monster, so it's cool to see them kick ass, but here, it feels like Schultz was making it up as she went along. However, there is some good, as Janine's character is at least a massive improvement from how Wells was writing her, which of course leads to characters. Janine here is, as I just said, improved. Unlike Dark Web, where she was just following Chasm blindly cause love, I guess, she once again has a personality and legit tries to be a decent person. We dive into how Dark Web and the stuff with Beyond is affecting her. Hell, while Dark Web again just kind of brushed over why she would follow Chasm, and here they do at least try to explain it. And I do mean Chasm, not Ben, as again, I'll talk about that later. We come to understand that she's become more emotionally dependent on Ben and followed Chasm as she was hoping that the man she loved was still in there. This of course is seen as unhealthy, and it's even implied that she might be seeing some memories with rose-tinted lenses. Which is interesting, though I already saw it done better in Fiona and Cake. Unfortunately, they never fully dive into it, which I feel like is a bad move, as it could have been an interesting topic to dive into, but for now, this character is just okay. This was not Janine at her best, but definitely not her her worst. Next, we got our main villain, Maxine Danger. And boy, she did not improve after Beyond. She's so bland in this story. Like, remember that Rick and Morty episode where they had that crazy CEO lady who wanted Jerry to get with his mom? Yeah, she makes her look like a cosmic level threat. She's just an evil businesswoman that you see in most media, to the point you can predict exactly what she's gonna say before she says it. Not much to say about Maxine except bland as a stale cracker and tap water. Next we got our werewolf Simon. Might not be my favorite take on my favorite monster, but still interesting. As we see, Simon here isn't like fellow werewolves like Jack Russell or John Jameson, where they deal with the curse and use it to be heroic and badass thanks to prior training or magical destiny. Simon is just a normal guy who loves his family and was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, which you don't see too much in comics. Unfortunately, I do feel like they could have done more with that in the horror aspect, but on the dramatic, it's pretty solid, and you do begin to feel sorry for Simon. As for the rest of the cast, I have honestly nothing to say about them, as they're all just there to fill certain roles we expect in superhero comics. Detective Seven as the rival/ally in the police force, Marcus as the guy in the chair, and Maxine's assistants and tech guys to just be the villain sidekicks. Seven is slightly more developed as she is trying to figure out what's happening, but that really wowed or surprised me. Marcus especially sucks since his arc in the Beyond story was pretty solid, as he risked it all to help his friends. Here, due to the chair, that's about it. As for Spider-Man, he's just there to boost the sales, though that didn't really work. Again, not much to say about these characters. The art was done by Michael Dowling, who some might know for the Image comic Safe Sex or his time in the Black Cat comics, where he does an amazing job, but here, like Schultz, it feels like he's just doing it for the paycheck, as it's just lacking something. No true emotion in it. It's sadly fitting. Again, Hallows Eve isn't the worst thing you could read this October. In fact, there are some upsides when it comes to the main character. If you're interested in reading this, be my guest. But for me at least, it's pretty forgettable. Harmless, but forgettable. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates, and get ready cause we ain't done yet with the spooky season. Especially next time, things will get more hairy, or at least furry. Later.